We recently marked the 20th anniversary of September 11th, a day that forever changed our nation. This direct assault on our country sparked the global war on terrorism, a war that came at great personal cost to our men and women serving in the armed forces. As a combat veteran, as the mother of a future soldier, even simply as an American, the events in Afghanistan have been extremely disheartening to watch. I've heard from so many veterans and service members who served during this war, many of whom are distraught and disappointed at the haphazard way the war in Afghanistan came to a close. I've also heard from too many Gold Star families who lost so much during this conflict. Their spouses, their fathers, their mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters. Recent events have left them questioning themselves and whether their family members' sacrifice was worth it. While we can't put the genie back in the bottle when it comes to what happened in Afghanistan last month, we can properly memorialize the service of the brave men and women who fought and died to protect and defend the United States of America since the beginning of the global war on terror. I stand before you today to ask that the Senate join with me in honoring our global war on terrorism veterans and the sacrifices they made by supporting and passing my bipartisan bill, the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Location Act. In August of 2017, Congress passed and President Trump signed into law our bill authorizing the creation of a memorial commemorating the sacrifices of all those wonderful Americans who fought in the global war on terrorism. This memorial will be 100% privately funded and will not use a single dime of taxpayer money. Most importantly, it will pay tribute to our fallen service members across the country, including the 13 who perished in Afghanistan on August 26th. Among the 13 was Iowa native Corporal Dagan William Tyler Page, who bravely gave the greatest sacrifice of all. Mr. President, this memorial is going to be built. It has already become law. It's ready to go. So let's get it built on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., where it belongs. It is the least we in Congress can do for the men and women who have given so much. We have the opportunity to unite around a common cause while providing a central location for our many veterans and their families affected by the global war on terror, to reunite and reflect on their loved ones' sacrifices. And this isn't a partisan idea. Earlier this month, the 6 surviving secretaries of defense, spanning Democratic and Republican administrations, Robert Gates, Leon Panetta, Chuck Hagel, Ash Carter, Jim Mattis, and Mark Esper, they all wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in support of placing the Global War on Terror Memorial on our National Mall. While nothing will ever restore the lives that we have lost, this memorial would serve as a tribute to those brave men and women and their loved ones who have sacrificed in defense of our freedom. For more than 20 years, I had the privilege of serving my state and country in uniform. As a veteran of the global war on terror, I know firsthand the sacrifices the millions of brave men and women of our armed forces made in this fight against radical extremists. Like many others, I have risen my right hand and taken that oath voluntarily and without reservation. That is why the effort to build this memorial in its rightful place is a personal one, not just to me, but to every service member, veteran, surviving family member, and civilian who has been impacted by this fight. This national memorial will provide all Americans a permanent place of reflection in the heart of our nation's capital. It will serve as a permanent commitment to the mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, and children who lost their whole world, that this country is forever grateful and in their debt. It will serve as a place of healing for the thousands of veterans still carrying the wounds of war, both seen and unseen. The National Mall is currently home to the memorials honoring World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. How could we put the memorial for our nation's longest war anywhere else? And Mr. President, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources be discharged from further consideration of S-535 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President, reserving the right to object.
Senator from West Virginia.
Mr. President, 4 years ago, I was proud to join with Senator Ernst in sponsoring legislation to authorize construction of the National Global War on Terrorism Memorial to commemorate and honor the members of the armed forces who served on active duty in support of global war on terrorism. That bill passed the House and Senate on a voice vote and was signed into law August 2017. A memorial honoring the men and women of the armed forces who served our nation in a global war on terrorism, our country's longest military conflict, is the least that we can do to recognize their service and sacrifice, and especially those who gave their lives in service of our nation. In 2017, I said that it was incredibly important to honor these men and women, and it remains incredibly important today. I want the memorial to be built as quickly as possible. In fact, I think it should be the National Park Service's highest priority for approving new memorials, but it should be built following the same process that applies to all other memorials and commemorative works. Since 2003, Mr. President, the Commemorative Works Act has prohibited new memorials in an area called the Reserve, which is essentially the National Mall. Since that time, there have been several proposals to waive the prohibition for new memorials or museums in that area on the mall, including World War I Memorial and the Desert Storm and Desert Shield Memorial. Ultimately, these were located in other high-profile areas in compliance with the Commemorative Works Act. This legislation would override this provision in the law to allow the Global War on Terrorism Memorial to be sited on the Reserve. As chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, I believe this precedent would reopen the fight to locate other memorials on the National Mall and create more controversy that will ultimately delay the construction of this memorial, which is much needed. And while I'm a strong supporter of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial, this would be creating an exception to the law for one memorial where others have been turned away, and doing so without full committee process. Our subcommittee on national parks, which is chaired by Senator King from Maine, held a hearing on Senator Ernst's bill on June 23rd. At that hearing, the Department of the Interior testified in opposition to Senate Bill 535 as currently drafted. So I would respectfully ask my friend, Senator Ernst, to withdraw her unanimous consent request to discharge her bill from committee and would commit to holding a markup of the bill so that we can consider the options the impact and a path forward for this most important memorial.
And
Does the senator withdraw her request?
respectfully, I do not.
Then I must respectfully object to the senator's request, but I maintain my commitment to work with my friend from Iowa and the families who rightfully want to memorialize their loved ones to find a path forward for this important memorial.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President?
The senator from Iowa.
Yes, I will continue on this path. We, again, passed this bill. It was signed into law in 2017, creating the foundation to establish the Global War on Terror Memorial. So that was the first step in a process that is now culminated after 4 years of discussion and work. And I am very hopeful that the committee will go through regular process. I would encourage the chair to move forward on a markup of the bill and a vote on the bill. And if we can receive that markup and vote, then I will stop my live UCs. But until that point, I think it is imperative that we continue pushing for that regular order. So I feel committed, obviously, to those that I have served with, the others that have served in the Global War on Terror, their families, the affected communities, our Gold Star families, and others. This is our nation's longest-running war. It is a war that has affected more than just those service members that set foot in the Middle East. So my commitment to those families, those communities, and our country is that we'll continue to proceed to make sure that this memorial is placed in prominence on our National Mall. And with that, Mr. President, I yield.
President,
Senator from West Virginia.
just in response to my friend from Iowa, you have my commitment. We will do this markup, and we will get it scheduled as quickly as we possibly can. And we'll work through that. We would encourage you to be at the markup if you would like and speak on it at that time. We'll have the park people there. We'll go through this in a very diligent way, and hopefully we get a resolve as quick as possible.